Chapter 40. I still needed places to escape to, and one day after school I found access to the roof of the school. I even found that I could jimmy the lock on one of the doors and have access to the school anytime I wanted to. A couple of times I went up there and sat looking at the stars. It was only a 2-story building, but there was just something about rooftops and high places that I liked. I still looked for spaceships because I knew I didn't belong on this earth. I especially liked to walk the edge of the roof that was away from the road so no one could see me. People tended to freak sometimes when people walked on the ledge of a building. I wanted to tell them that it wasn't scary at all, that sometimes magical things happened. I tried to get the motorcycles out of my mind, but I couldn't. Half of April was over and I couldn't concentrate in school for watching motorcycles doing jumps in my mind. As I rode the bus home from school, all I could think about was motorcycles landing with a thud and a skid, dirt flying everywhere. My electric guitar sat soundlessly in my room. On the Saturday after Daddy and I had another motorcycle discussion, I skipped most of the chores I was supposed to be doing and found a ride over to the track. Watching the motorcycles was even more intoxicating in person. I went over to the bikers to talk with them, but most ignored me or avoided me, and the others just gave me amused looks. When I came upon some parents that seemed understanding, I said to them, "I want to learn to ride. Can you guys show me how to ride?" Their response was the same as Daddy's. Plus, they only knew me as the kid that liked to fight. Even so, I stayed watching until they were finished. I made my way back after school the next day because I heard them say they'd be practicing. I kept up asking if someone would teach me to ride. The answer was always no, and I'd go back and start all over. 2 weeks hadn't gone by before Daddy was on my case. "Angel, those guys don't want you over at the track. The parents and the riders are tired of you bugging them. You're all consumed by that track. Get your guitar out and practice," he said angrily. "And by the way, I expect your homework done within the hour because I want to see it." I stood defiantly in the doorway of the barn where he was working on a tractor. "I don't care about guitars anymore. You said for me to find something else to do, and I want to learn how to ride a motorcycle." He stood up from the greasy wheel of a tractor and wiped his hands in a rag. "At this moment, I want you to go do your homework and put in an hour of practice on your guitar. I don't want to hear any more about motorcycles tonight." I left the barn in a huff. I really wanted to go to the track, and I thought about defying Daddy. In the end, I just steamed about it and hoped that if I obeyed, then it might get me closer to the bike I wanted. I settled in and did my homework and played my guitar. I realized the next day at school that during my daydreams of motorcycles that my grades had slipped. I'd failed 2 tests in major subjects. There was no way I'd get straight A's as a final grade. Nearly every teacher had pulled me aside for a talk. Then it got worse when I got home. Daddy was mad at me for a lot of reasons. I talked to Yellow about it. "You have to give motorcycles a rest," he said. "At least until school is out. Study like you're supposed to and do the things that are expected of you. Put the motorcycles out of your mind." "Oh, I'm not you too," I exclaimed in exasperation. His answer was to jump on my bed and lick my face. "Deep down, you know your destiny is music. You need to practice your guitar and your singing," I heard a voice in my head say, but I didn't want to hear it. I was tired of music. I was tired of playing that damn guitar, piano, and those drums. And who the heck cared about singing? I had to force myself to think of schoolwork and guitars instead of motorcycles for the next 3 weeks. I even made up this angry song on my guitar about the unfairness of it all. After I did that, I got to thinking that I could play harder songs than my music teacher was giving me. Why was I dumbing myself down? It's not like Daddy was there to listen. I knew I could already play better than I was admitting. I found a music video of someone who played so cool on guitar and watched how they played and listened to how it sounded. I could do that too. On the first Saturday of my summer vacation, Daddy dropped me off at the music store for my weekly guitar lesson. We had gotten my grades and I had somehow managed only to get one B and the rest A's. I was pretty mad in general, and instead of playing the song my music teacher asked me to play, I ripped through a complicated electric guitar solo that I had been practicing at home. I made sure I imitated everything I'd seen that famous guitar player do in the video. I was down on my knees, leaning backward, and just tearing it up through the last chords. When I was finished, my teacher was staring at me with this astonished look on his face. Clapping began coming from the door. I turned around to see everyone who was in the store huddled around the door watching me, yelling, "Woo! Woo! That was so cool!" One of the riders was there with his dad. Everyone was clapping and cheering by then and saying how cool I was on guitar. I looked towards the rider and his dad and remarked, "Now how about that ride?" The dad laughed and said, "Okay, kid, if you put that much practice into a guitar, you were surely serious about learning to ride a motorcycle. Come over to the track." When Daddy came to pick me up, my music teacher pulled him aside. I waited impatiently outside, just imagining myself doing motorcycle jumps. I didn't know then that I wouldn't be taking any more guitar lessons. I had done a lot of playing by ear since I first picked up a guitar. Daddy had also wanted me to read music and understand it. Although Daddy didn't tell me on that day, I found out later that the teacher had said that I needed to be teaching him guitar instead of him teaching me. From that time on, I took guitar lessons from someone that Daddy called one of the greats. And the guy was really one of the greats. I learned a lot from him. Daddy also had me taking voice lessons so that I could sing to the best of my ability. I argued about that, but somehow I ended up taking the lessons anyways. I liked how Steven Tyler of Aerosmith could wail like a banshee, and so I was going to do that to get out of the lessons. That backfired on me, and my voice coach taught me to wail just like him. I had a strong voice with a pretty good range to it. I could be a songbird, or I could wail, and I was good at it, which surprised me. I could take it or leave it though, as I wasn't that interested in singing. I pestered Daddy as soon as he came out of the store with that rider's dad. I thought he was going to say something in anger, but instead he bit his lip and drove over to the track. "Let's just go talk to this man and get this out of your system." He and the man walked away and talked for quite a bit. One of the riders, whose name was Brad, skidded up to me where I was standing off the side of the track and sprayed me with dirt and pebbles. "Christmas tree, you're not up to this," he sneered. Then he gunned his bike and skidded off. He ticked me off, especially calling me Christmas tree, but boy could he ride that bike. I couldn't help but watch him in awe. Much to my surprise, Daddy told me that I would get my chance to learn to ride, but I wasn't doing it there. They didn't want the other riders making me nervous or causing me to wreck. They didn't say it, but they really didn't want me to be embarrassed in front of all those boys. Daddy would be driving me over to Matt's house to let Matt's dad show me how to ride the next day. I was so hyped up by the time we arrived that I could hardly stand it. The riding came a lot harder than the electric guitar I'd learned. I'd had too many close calls. Daddy let me continue though. He bought me a motorcycle and Matt's dad continued to coach me. It was a month before I even trusted my riding. My dreams of doing jumps with the bike dimmed quite a bit, but I still intended to accomplish it eventually. I did realize that for me it would be a lot longer than I had envisioned, but at least I had learned to ride. Although I wasn't the best rider, I drove down to the track. I got busted by Daddy too many times riding after dark when everyone had left. By the time he threatened to take my bike away, I was doing pretty well on the track, and so I just went during the day. It took some getting used to for the other riders to see me there, but Brad, the one who taunted me that one time, only got worse. He was mean to other riders if he knew they could not ride him. One or two of them stopped coming to the track. I wanted to fight him so badly, but I wanted to ride more. After several insults and near collisions with him, I finally let go and belted him. It was only the two of us at the track at the time, and we were really going at it. The thing is, he was better at fighting than most of my prey. Even though he was a year younger than me, he beat me to a pulp. I finally gave up. He could win this fight. I didn't care anymore. I'd made my point. He laughed at me and skidded off on his bike, leaving me in the dirt. I felt pretty sore, but I got on my bike and rode home. Daddy was mad at me and took my bike away. Use this time to practice your drums or your guitar, he warned me. He was tired of the problems that my motorcycle seemed to have caused. But Dad, if you don't let me ride tomorrow, Brad will have won. Take the bike off of me tomorrow. I can't let him win, I cried. All the guys will call me a sissy, and I'll lose any respect they have for me. He relented, and I was back at the track the next day. Brad rode in, and I went right after his ass. I suddenly realized that my riding had greatly improved, and although I wasn't as good as several of them, I was doing okay for this track. Brad came back with twice the vengeance. He kept dodging me and would suddenly swoop in inches away from me. Some bystanders were yelling at him to stop. He eventually did make me wreck, but the bike absorbed most of the fall. I was just scraped up a bit. I got right back on that bike and went after him. His dad pulled up in his car in time to see me dogging him. He angrily motioned for both of us to pull off the track, which we did. When I got off my bike, his dad grabbed me by the arm and shook me. What the hell did you think you were doing? Do you want to kill him? He screamed at me. He started it, I shot back. Brad, who was one of the best riders and prided on that, jumped off his bike. Yeah, she's right, he said reluctantly. His dad yelled at me some more. I'll make sure you never ride here again, he spat. Now get out of here. I fired up my bike and skidded off. I was fuming. I didn't want to tell Daddy what had happened, but I did anyway. It was better he heard it from me. He took my bike and locked it away, and he said he was grounding me for the rest of the summer. Who knew that one passion could ruin a whole summer? Daddy left the next morning to go to an auction. He left a ton of chores for me to do, and he ordered me to practice my music. I was not to leave the property, he said. I was on the front porch angrily shelling Purple Hall peas when Brad roared up the driveway on his motorcycle and skidded to a stop in front of me. What the fuck do you want? I spat at him. I'm fucking grounded, asshole. My dad locked up my motorcycle. He ignored my outburst. I want to show you something, Christmas tree. Get your helmet and let's go, he said as if he hadn't heard a word I'd said. Fuck you. And fucking quit calling me Christmas tree, I replied. I saw Yellow there beside me. I could make him growl. Yellow, I commanded. Yellow growled and moved towards him. Just get on my bike, he said in exasperation. He just stayed there on his motorcycle staring at me. Yellow stopped growling and looked back at me. He's going to be nice to you right now, but you better watch he doesn't get you in a lot of trouble. This intrigued me. Wordlessly, I put aside the peas and went inside to get my helmet. I put it on and got on the bike with him. Brad gunned the bike and we skidded off. As I wondered where he could be taking me, I saw the track up ahead. Hang on, he said. I held on to his waist and he headed to the track. We took the track faster than I had ever gone, skidding and spraying dirt everywhere. He slowed down ever so slightly around a turn, then sped up, and before I could think about it, we were airborne on that motorcycle. We hit hard, but I hung on and went with it. Then we did it all again. My heart was racing like a freight train when Brad finally came to a stop. It was all I needed to be intoxicated by it all again and to forgive everything he'd ever done to me. I couldn't even speak. I just got off the bike and stared at him like he was the greatest. Cool, huh? He smiled. I had hardly ever seen him smile. Yeah, I said breathlessly. This is what I wanted to show you, he replied as he took off again. After he did certain things like the jump and the wide skids, he'd stop and tell me how he did them. He told me how I needed to lean for this certain thing or accelerate more when I did this thing. I just stood there in astonishment, but I absorbed everything he said. Then he got off his bike and told me, "You know that you can do that jump. Go try it." And in that moment, I did indeed know that I could. Everything that he had shown me I was able to do. My riding wasn't as polished as his, but it worked. I found myself flying through the air on a motorcycle. My dreams had come true. He and I rode some more, but then he dropped me back at home. He sat on his bike staring as if he had something to say, but wasn't sure if he wanted to say it. After a few moments, he said, "Christmas tree is a cool name. I'm going to call you that." Okay, I sighed. As long as he was teaching me how to ride, and what he called me didn't seem to matter anymore. Some narcs told my dad that I was the one dodging you, and that you were only trying to burn my ass on the track because you'd had enough for me. They told him how I'd done that to other riders. He's not mad at you anymore. He's mad at me now, but I don't give a shit. He didn't tell anyone what happened, so you can still ride at the track. I can't ride my bike at the track. I told you that my dad grounded me and locked up my bike, I replied as my good mood slipped away. Didn't stop you from riding today, did it? Live to ride, baby. He smirked right before he roared away, his back tire kicking up the gravel and dirt. I watched the bike until it disappeared, and then I sat down on the porch steps. I tried to shell the Purple Hall peas, but all I kept seeing was jumping motorcycles. Now I felt the sensation of jumping in my daydreams, and it was way cooler than I had ever thought possible. Live to ride, baby. The next day, Brad was back. That day and each day after, he managed to arrive when Daddy wasn't around, and we'd go to the track and he'd teach me more about riding. Sometimes we'd ride together. I knew I was grounded, but I couldn't help sneaking off. Brad accepted me, and that was rather intoxicating too. It was the first time I've ever had a real friend that was close to my age. He was very different from anyone I'd known before, and maybe that's why we connected so well. Our relationship was always physical. He wasn't much easier to get along with now that we hung around together, and if we weren't rolling on the ground in a huff, we were either pushing each other or wrestling. At the time, I never saw the truth about it. I didn't realize that because both of us related to people by fighting and pushing other people around, that's the reason we connected. I also knew that Daddy would eventually hear about me being at the track or catch me gone when I should have been home. So it was no surprise about 2 weeks later when it happened. Brad had showed up about midnight one night and awakened me. There was a rose trellis up to my bedroom, and he had climbed into my half-open window. I sneaked out with him and went riding through town, toppling over trash cans. Then we went screeching through the streets and just raising hell in general. Before he took me home, we were racing down one road about 100 miles an hour. He was just so daring, and it gave me such a high to do the things we did. Daddy heard about my riding at the track the next day when he stopped at the grocery store. The clerk had remarked how she had seen me at the track practicing my turns. I heard the door slam as I was washing the dishes. He stormed into the kitchen. "I cannot believe, after all I've said, that you were at the motocross track when you know you're grounded," he said to me. I dried my hands. "I just want to ride, Dad. I'd do anything to be able to ride." "You mean steal your bike out of the barn and ride?" "No, my bike is still locked up. I rode Brad's bike. He's been teaching me to ride." "I just don't know what I'm going to do with you," he said. "You don't listen to anything I say." "I have listened and done everything you've said except for the riding. And my bike hasn't left the barn." His piercing glare shot through me. "You know what? Just take the damn bike and ride. You're not grounded anymore. Since I can't teach you anything, you'll just learn it the hard way." Then he dug into his pocket for his keys. He took off a key and threw it at me. I was shocked as the key bounced off my leg onto the floor. "There, go ride." I stared in bewilderment as he slammed back out the door. I pondered going riding but didn't go. Instead, I finished my chores and then I picked up my guitar. While I was playing my angry song, Brad appeared at the door. "That sucks," he said of my playing. Soon we were scuffling on the floor. "What the hell?" Daddy exclaimed from the doorway. We jerked up to look at him. "Oh, hey, Dad, this is Brad," I remarked as if scuffling on the floor was a normal occurrence. "What's this?" Daddy asked, looking very confused. He was gesturing to our scuffle. "Oh, nothing. Just wrestling. We're friends now. He's the one that's been teaching me to ride better at the track," I replied as I got to my feet. "I need to know where y'all will be riding at, so at least leave me a note. And stop the fighting," he muttered as he walked off. He was still mad. Brad and I grinned at each other. "Live the ride, yeah!" he exclaimed. A while later, I took my motorcycle out of lockup and we went riding. Later, Daddy did have a talk with Brad about how to treat people. Not that it made a difference. Things went on like that for the rest of the summer. Brad and I scuffled anytime we were together, and when we weren't doing that, we were either causing trouble or practicing for the upcoming motocross event. In the meantime, I continued to do my chores and practice my music.